Good morning, everybody. My name is Dante White, Senior Channel Manager here at Ring Central. I appreciate you all joining us here for another installment of Dante's Information Download. Greatly appreciate the time and dedication to your development, right, in your business and where it's going to go. Compliance is a huge thing. Security is a huge thing when it comes to life in general, right, in the IT infrastructure world and especially cloud. And I'm also joined here today by a very good friend of mine, Anthony from Theta Lake. Anthony, go ahead and say good morning to the folks, and thank you so much for joining me again.
Good morning, guys. This is Anthony. I'm really excited to join the webinar here and talk about compliance and our integration with Ring Central.
Absolutely. Anthony's contact details are right there, so if you need to get a hold of him, please feel free to shoot him an email, give him a call. Obviously, mine's there as well. Today, we'll be going over a few things. We'll talk about the state of the market as a whole. I want you to understand what's going on in the UCaaS space, understand why integrations are going to be a huge part of any business, particularly in the compliance sector. And then I will wrap up with Ring Central security and compliance so you know where we're coming from that standpoint. Then I'll shoot over to Anthony, and he will go over what they're doing at Theta Lake, give a little overview on that, and also a demo of the solution. It's quite an amazing product. I was very impressed with the demo that I received on it, and it's been a pleasure putting this together, folks. Once again, thank you so much. As a reminder, everybody is muted, so if you have any questions, there's a Q&A tab, also a chat section. So if you have any questions, go ahead, put them there. If we don't have time to answer the questions or they go a little bit more technical in nature, I'll make sure that we connect after the webinar. Anthony will make sure that he connects with you if it's on his portion of it and get everything answered for you. Once again, thank you so much for attending, and looking forward to talking a little bit more about this. When you look at the current state of the market, it's pretty important to understand what's going on today and obviously what's going to go on here in the future. You join the webinar so you can get a good picture of that. And Gartner has a couple of great things to say. According to them, by 2020, over 90% of enterprise voice calls in the digital workplace will originate from a collaboration application, something like Ring Central's GLIP product set. And that's up from less than 30% today. So everything is being consolidated and collaborated. People are making phone calls from their CRM, from their email box. We're really kind of cleaning up the clutter and the different ways of contacting. Additionally to that, in a survey conducted by us, 73% of participants said communication and collaboration from a single platform was going to be what they wanted. And the truth of it is that's because the average worker uses 5 to 6 tools to communicate and collaborate. Think about that. You might be using a web share. You might be using a chat like a GLIP or like a Microsoft Teams or a Slack, something of that nature. People might be hitting you up on social media. So there's a lot of different ways to communicate internally and also externally. And by consolidating that, we found that it would improve productivity by 30%. A little bit later, we'll discuss how Ring Central is addressing that need. So when you look at the cloud overall, Gartner, to bring them up again, has stopped utilizing their on-prem Magic Quadrant. They're strictly focusing on the cloud now. And you can see that because on-prem technologies are in decline by about 12% when I look at UCaaS. The cloud UCaaS market space is growing by 21%, and Ring Central is winning at about 37%, right? So we're nearly double what's going on in that marketplace today. So if you're not already selling Ring Central, you definitely want to look into it. If you are already, then you're already on the boat. Definitely integrations like Theta Lake, if you're in highly compliant industries, healthcare, financial services, state and local government. I mean, overall, it's not a bad idea to be compliant, but those 3 pieces of the market are going to be huge and continue to be huge because things are always changing. Baird, if anybody's familiar with them, is a financial company that vets and does reports, and in January they released one on the UCaaS market space. So a couple of their findings, standalone cloud providers are clearly winning in the channel, right? So The ones like RingCentral, like 8x8 by Fuse, these standalone providers are growing much faster than the hybrid and on-premise providers, as the last graph showed. There's some bigger wins that are also coming across too. So 8x8, Vonage, Nextiva, companies like this, all in that space. You can see that the results were relatively underwhelming for the other standalone providers. This isn't just RingCentral talking, right? This is a financial institution that vetted the entire partner base in the marketplace to say, you know, what's going on? We're chasing the hockey puck. Where do we want to place our bets and where do we want to put our money? So when you look at it another way, 100% of the partners who expected UC sales to grow over the next, 3 months are really flocking to our solution in general. And that's for several different reasons: security, uptime, the integrations, you name it. And not to say that other providers don't, but we've always been born in the cloud. You know, folks, it's in the United States, $25 billion total addressable market. If you add in the global piece, if I've got partners here on this webinar that are serving global markets, as I do, if you're abroad, if you're over in Australia, if you're in France, if you're working with any of our channel managers over there, maybe in the UK, the global piece is going to be huge, right? And looking at that $75 billion, when you look at the entire world, we've only really penetrated the market at 5 to 10%, depending on who you ask. So sky's the limit here today. I want to talk to you as well about kind of bridging that gap, right? Like why integrations are going to be key for partners, why it's going to be key for customers, helping you understand that piece of it, right? What it can mean for your clients and the customer experience. The customer experience is huge in any business, any industry. You know, when you call in to an organization and they recognize your name by your phone number and they say, hey, Dante, I see you're calling us. Last time you scheduled a dental cleaning, is that why you're calling again? It's because they've got an integrated technology, right? Their phone system is attached to their EMR or their CRM, so they can see what the last interactions were. And it just feels good overall as a customer to know that they're actually paying attention to you. As I said earlier, app overload is huge, right? There's like 5 to 6 different modes of communication for most employees. And employees are struggling to cope with that abundance of tools. So, you know, when you take the integrations piece of it, you can really start making and taking phone calls from those applications or connecting the dots and making it much simpler in everybody's life, because as it calls in, it will give them the option to pop in notes, record the calls, record the video like Theta Lake, and make sure that it stays in compliance. UCaaS as a whole, right? Looking at RingCentral and what we do here. You've got the foundation, which is the traditional cloud-based PBX, voice, conferencing, fax services, the typical things that you would expect from any other provider. When you take it up to that next level, applications that include collaboration tools, video meeting, text messaging, and contact center offerings also as part of the RingCentral platform. And then the differentiators, talking about our open and integrated architecture so you can connect to businesses and applications like Theta Lake, like a Happy Fox CRM, global as well, right? So that's the differentiator factors. We've got presence in over 80 countries. So if you do business yourself abroad, if your companies that you're working with are multinational corporations, we have dial tone in over 80 countries with an abundance of data centers across the globe to support that uptime and SLA. The last portion before I kick it off into kind of the slide about looking at a snapshot of our integrations is the analytics tab. Analytics is huge. You know, it's not only seeing who's making and taking phone calls, who's on voicemail, you know, the typical things that you would think as an operations or a manager to kind of see what your employees are doing or what they're not doing, but also the ability to see what's going on in the voice, right? So being able to see if you're experiencing pain points of jitter and latency with our QoS reports, you're also able to see what's going on and why. I can see when one of my employees is on a mobile application and say, hey, look, you're having really bad voice quality. It's because you're on your mobile app. The Wi-Fi where you're at is pretty bad. You should switch over to your carrier. or maybe you can see if one of the internet providers is down in the area, right? So for partners, it's easier to kind of drill in for your customers and help them out on their overall strategy of connectivity. For the customers, it's great too because now they actually know what's going on, right? And they're able to address those situations, maybe get an SD-WAN solution, maybe get a second redundant internet connection so they can support the voice in a better way alongside all the other applications that people might be running. RingCentral's got a huge app marketplace. Developer.ringcentral.com is where you can see that ecosystem. Over 140 of these out-of-the-box integrations. Anything from Jira ticketing, MailChimp, Oracle Sales Cloud, Microsoft Dynamics, HappyFox, who I've done one of these webinars with as well, Workato, them too. The marketplace itself is always growing and expanding because we do have those open APIs. And if you have a homegrown solution, you're able to build something custom as well. So it's a good way for partners to look at the big picture for their customers and for their customers to really see the value in a phone system, right? In a UCaaS solution. It's more than just the voice. It's more than just the fax. It's more than just the text. It's really bridging that gap and giving customers a better experience overall by doing this. And also your employees, right? Getting rid of that app overload. Pause for a quick second, see if we have any questions. All right, good to go. So while there always will be new threats and new attacks and new technologies, you can work with your users to address security concerns and improve their security postures. It's critical for companies to strengthen their core security hygiene, across things like monitoring, antivirus, patch, and operating systems. When you're adopting modern platforms and comprehensive identity, security, and management solutions, it's a really big picture. And I believe, as well as many other experts, I would say that security is a journey and not a destination. It's also an issue that must be addressed holistically by the industry and not by a single vendor, right? So RingCentral's got our security and compliance, Data Lake's got theirs, all the other cloud technologies, other integrated technologies that you're working with. We're all building these things together to become an ecosystem around the world to make sure that everybody is compliant, to make sure things are secure. So how does RingCentral do it? We've got 7 layers of security here at RingCentral. When it comes to our solution itself, we've got 17 data centers across the globe. They are encrypted in transit, also at rest. We run them active from an uptime perspective as well. We do that through infrastructure security. So RingCentral offers the following infrastructure security safeguards: network and applications. That includes firewalls and session border controllers. We have administrative functions, multiple authentication models, technology as well, intrusive detection systems, and fraud analytics. We protect for operational functions, so monitoring, system hardening, vulnerability scans. Ooh, that was a little tough this morning. And then also payment processing, right? Financial sector, people taking payments over the phone, so full PCI DSS 3.1 compliance. From a physical and environmental security standpoint, the RingCentral platform is developed across an SSAE 16 and ISO 2701. Audited data centers protected by the most robust electronic prevention systems, on-site engineering specialists, and security safeguards. The geographic diversity of our locations also minimizes the risk of data loss and service interruption due to any catastrophe. Right, like in Denver, the last couple of days, we got to experience a blizzard, and so I've been collaborating with team members across the Denver office, across my other offices, through Blip, and not skipping a beat on anything, able to make and take phone calls if there was something that happened, like a hurricane. If you lived on one of the coasts, you were able to continue to have that voice transmission and connectivity because of the way that we have our data centers set up in that active things. And we also have proactive fraud mitigation. So RingCentral itself prevents toll fraud through access control, detection controls, and usage throttling. And it gives you granular control over who gets to make international calls and to where, right? So monitoring that portion of who's making phone calls internally in your system and making sure that, folks aren't overspending for you. Plus the global security department actively monitors your account to detect irregular calling patterns and prevent fraudulent charges. Getting into the compliance portion of it, right? So we regularly undergo independent verification of our security controls to protect our customers' data and communications to meet regulatory and compliance needs. Some of those regulatory and compliance needs, right, are like SOC 2 and 3. We have both of those as well. You can send over the reports if anybody wants to see them. They're also available on ringcentral.com, but I'm also very happy to do so if anybody needs to see that. Talking about specific verticals, we've got HIPAA compliance, right? So we've got that covered for you. High trust as well. So RingCentral Office and the app have earned certified status for information security by High Trust. A pretty big deal to make sure that you have that. So, and then lastly, for the financial sector is FINRA. So FINRA is a private corporation that acts as a self-regulatory organization for member brokerage firms and exchange markets. It ensures over 4,200 organizations remain compliant. So if you're in a financial vertical, if you deal with people's financial information, our solution itself is also FINRA certified. And lastly, before I kick it over to Anthony, we are Sky High Enterprise ready, right? So McAfee Enterprise ready. RingCentral, we've earned the Sky High's Cloud Trust rating of Enterprise Ready. It's the highest rating possible from Sky High. Sky High provides this status to cloud services that fully satisfy the most stringent requirements for data protection, identity verification, service security, business practices, and also legal protection as well. So as I said, we've got 7 layers of security. We take it very seriously as an organization, as I know you do here on this webinar. I appreciate you sitting through my portion of it, folks. I'm going to hand it over to Anthony so he can give you an overview of Theta Lake and then also jump into the solution itself.
Perfect. Thank you, Dante, and appreciate you inviting me to be on Dante's information download. So hopefully you guys can see my screen here. I'll move through a quick presentation and then I'll try to make this as quick as possible and move into a demonstration of the product and the integration. So just at a high level, and Dante did a very good job of painting the landscape of the compliance industry, but what Theta Lake is a solution that uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to enable highly regulated organizations to address modern digital communication compliance more effectively and more efficiently. And so if you look at the digital landscape right now, it's constantly shifting. So if you look at traditional workers, phone is obviously still a staple of their environment, how they communicate to their customers, prospects, and other stakeholders. But newer workers are starting to adopt newer forms of and effective forms of communication. That's video. And so as you can see, there's a number of stats on how effective video communication is, but 85% of people want to see more video from brands. If you look at Zoom, they're hosting 42 billion in annualized meeting minutes, which is growing at 100% year-over-year rate. So you can see the landscape shifting to using video. And how do you actually monitor and supervise that content from a compliance perspective? And so when you're talking to highly regulated organizations, as Dante mentioned, financial services, insurance companies, healthcare, government, there's a number of regulations that are driving that, which I have at the bottom. A Dodd-Frank around pre-execution swap trade information, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, even FDA, and across on the UK and EMEA, there's the Financial Conduct Authority, which brought on a regulation called MiFID II, which requires all transaction-related conversations to be stored in a manner that prevents manipulation or alteration for at least 5 years. And that's just a few of them. So when you're talking to your organizations, they're going to be very concerned about retaining these call recordings for a period of up to 7 years. In a lot of cases, it's 5 years. And so you'll need to look at a unified communication as a service provider that enables call recording, which is why we partnered with RingCentral. But then they'll start looking for, how do we archive this content? I need that archive to be secure, worm compliant archive. Write once, read many. I'll also need to have policies about being able to apply retention. So some of my call recordings might need a 5-year retention policy. Other ones might need 1 year. But you need to have the ability to put legal holds on that so that when the auditors, the regulatory bodies, or even litigation comes, you're able to pull that content up and then prove that it's not been manipulated. And so that last point is e-discovery. How do I search across all of my repository of call recordings to make sure that I can bring up conversations that are relevant, that could potentially be a risk to the organization? So having that rich e-discovery capabilities to search not only across the metadata, the content of it, the people involved, but as well as the content inside of that actual call recording is very important. The other aspect that financial services are going to have concern with is supervision. Most organizations have a policy in place where they are manually reviewing a percentage of their call recordings each year, something like 10%, and they'll take these call recordings as a random sampling. So we'll have a team of people in a room listening to the call recordings and making sure that people aren't doing or saying something that could create a risk for the organization. And so when you talk to them, and you can see what the reason that's driving this is, the regulatory bodies are fining people when they actually are finding something that's happening for misconduct. So you can see there's $342 billion in fines levied towards banks for misconduct. Again, people doing or saying something that they shouldn't. The FCA actually increased the amount of penalties that they levied by 10 times just from 2016 to 17. And then the FCA even mandates that organizations need to periodically monitor those transactions, which include those relevant conversations. So when you're talking to your FinServ clients or prospects, they're going to look for a solution that has workflow, the ability to assign content to their team of compliance reviewers, and then have the ability to track, comment, and collaborate on those reviews when they find something of interest or that could be of risk to the organization. They're also looking for tools to help streamline that, start identifying risk, understand which conversations could be of higher risk than other ones, start looking for keyword policies, so flagging things that could be PII, that could be promissory statements, and then even auditing and reporting. So this is one of the other big ones, which is, now that I have these supervision policies in place, how do I demonstrate to the regulatory bodies that I'm taking a proactive approach on auditing and looking for gross negligence, people, just bad actors inside your environment. So just wanted to lay out a couple of the use cases. You think about the types of conversations that people will need to be recording. One is you look across video. So banking, advisory, brokerage claims, a wealth manager talking to their prospect or client. Again, audio, obviously with those traditional workers, is going to be a platform where traders use it to execute trades, even wealth managers with their clients. And then even marketing videos and personalized sales videos, making sure that there's no inappropriate promotions, misleading statements, and content that's getting distributed externally. So I wanted to talk one more thing about, I know compliance isn't the sexiest topic. We actually really enjoy it over here at Theta Lake, but one of the things that you have to appreciate inside financial services organizations is how much more complex it's getting for them. So if you look across from 2008 to 2015, there's been a 492% increase in the regulatory changes, which means it's more difficult for those compliance teams to understand the compliance policies that actually relate to this content that they need to retain and supervise. Another one is the accountability. So not only are organizations getting fined more, but the people, whether it's the chief information or chief compliance officer, chief information security officer, are being held personally accountable when there's a breach, when there's non-compliant behavior and there's a fine. And they're expecting that to continue and increase. In 2017, this number was 48%, so it's still even going up to 54%. And then the other approach is not only are fines a big aspect of this, but if organizations take the approach of, I'm just not going to do anything and wait for the fine, those costs are actually even higher. Brand reputation damage, lost productivity, loss of employees because they don't want to work for somebody who's been fined or has that negative brand image. And so those costs could be even more significant than actually just the direct cost of the fines and penalties from the regulatory bodies. So I just wanted to lay out a couple of examples, and you can see the size of these penalties. There was a LIBOR scandal, which is the London Interbank rate, and there was $5 billion in fines levied to Barclays, UBS, Citi, a number of other leading financial institutions. And when they looked back at the actual call recordings, you can see one of them that they flagged. It's just amazing how the LIBOR fixing can make you that much money or lose if opposite. It's a cartel now in London. I mean, this is just, they're openly talking about these conversations over recorded lines, but because of the volume of content and that policy of maybe reviewing 5 or 10% manually, it's very hard to detect these things if you don't have technology that's scanning 100% of the content. Another example is the State Street trader. No one is going to, I'll remove the explicitive, that it's a rounding error. So they're just openly, again, talking about these things that they're doing, which is market manipulation. And the compliance teams just don't have the resources to actually review and find that content. And so wanted to talk about the challenges, and I started alluding to some of it, of doing audio and video supervision at scale. So as I talked about, manual review is just not scalable. There's no way that you can review 100% of that audio and video content with a team of compliance people. It's just too expensive. The existing tools that are out there right now have done a good job for text-based communication, but they aren't built to actually monitor audio and video content. And then lastly, organizations are starting to bring in tools to help automate some of this. So one of the things that they do is bring in transcripts. Those can be inaccurate. They require manual review, building policies on top to look for keywords. And then also they're missing the visual content if you're looking at video. So I wanted to give one example on the left-hand side, which is what a transcript looks like a lot of times. The actual recording says, certainly my account number is, you can read the rest, 10-1-2-3-4-8-1-03. You can see the transcript doesn't mention account number in it at all. So if you're doing a keyword search looking for PII, you're going to miss account number because it's not actually in that transcript. And so there's things that you have to do on top of that, which I'll talk about. So what we do today is we ingest audio and video content through our integrations like Zoom and RingCentral and Zoom, and then we're able to extract images and scenes. So we'll not only analyze the content. One of the things that we talked about is transcripts, one of them, but what we do is we provide relevance and normalization on top of it. So doing proximity filtering, words that sound alike, so that account number, got member, those two things sound alike. We can actually determine that that could be a potential PII because of the numbers that are associated with it. Again, we'll do things like grouping of words together, custom vocabularies to make sure that that transcript is more accurate for detecting compliance risk. And then we'll also do things like drive detections through our compliance workflow and then provide a compliant archive for e-discovery. And I'll show you how that comes through in our platform. So first wanted to start with some of these policies that I talked about. We cover things like FINRA, as Dante mentioned, FFIEC, MiFID II, and the Financial Conduct Authority. And again, these are looking for things like, I can guarantee a 20% return. There's virtually no risk in this environment. Another big one that you'll see is customer complaints. There's a requirement around reporting those to the regulatory bodies. And so you want to make sure that your compliance team is getting alerted every time there's a customer complaint, as opposed to waiting for your wealth manager to actually report it and relying on them to do that. Again, these can all be customized. As you can see, there's an active as well as risk. Some of these are driving a risk score, which I'll show you a later screen. Some of them are reducing if you have a disclaimer that's at the back of a sales or a marketing video. And some of them are informational. But again, all these can be customized for the specific environments you're looking for. The other things that we're looking for that organizations are going to be concerned about are things like risky behavior. There's a requirement, obviously, for traders to be having all their conversation on recorded lines. Now, if a trader is trying to take that conversation away from a recorded line, I can't talk about that here. Text me that information. I can get in trouble talking on this line about that. All those things that would be suspicious behavior that you would want to know that somebody's trying to take this conversation away from a recorded line. Those are the type of risks that we're looking for. And then, as I talked about, we're covering things like account numbers, social security numbers, credit card numbers. And these are both, as you can see, spoken as well as shown on screen. And then lastly, some of the things that we're focused on are acceptable use policies, the use of profanity, adult brand logos, whether they're shared on screen when you share your entire desktop or something in the background, and then even controversial, contentious topics and symbols. In addition, you can create custom detection rules. So depending on, if you're working in an investment bank and there's a list of project names of upcoming M&A transaction or IPOs that you don't want to publicly disclose, you can create these custom detection rules with those project names, with the names of the specific organizations, and then also have timeframes so that they can time out after the transaction has been publicly disclosed. The other thing that's important is when you're having a review policy across, all of your call recordings. Again, it's something that, technology can enable review of all 100% of these call recordings, but you're going to want to focus your review for your compliance team to do manual review on the higher risk content. So you can create policies and workflows around which content is going to be fed to your compliance team to do the manual review. So I can pick the 100% of my high and medium risk items, and then a sample of the low risk items, just to make sure I'm covering my entire basis. Again, you can customize however these you want for your workflow. You can have different percentages as you want to apply to it. But again, this is how content gets ingested into our environment and then gets assigned to a queue, which is for the compliance reviewer. And so I'll show you what that looks like. So in my environment, I'll have, this is my personal as the compliance reviewer view, is I'll have a number of audio and video files that have been assigned to me. And so you can see, I can prioritize them by newest first, by the ones that have the highest risk score. So let's just take an example of a call recording. So I can listen to this in its entirety if I wanted to.
This call is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please disconnect at this time.
And then I'll ask you, watch over to the right-hand side, and you can see these two red dots are based off the policies an organization has chosen. We will then detect those potential risks and then put them on this timeline so that you can interact with them.
Hi, Mrs. Hatchett. How can I help you today?
Hi, James. I need help. I've talked to your customer service several times and I'm getting the runaround and nobody's fixing the fucking problem. I have a mortgage to your bank.
So you can see not only did that trigger on customer complaints, but it also triggered on profanity. Now, instead, if I wanted to start this over, if I just wanted to go to the moments in time where we've detected potential risk, I can just click on that 10-second mark, that 14-second mark. It'll bring me right to there. I can confirm that it was, in fact, profanity. And it'll bring it inside that workflow. Again, if you extrapolate the concept of these aren't going to be 1-minute recordings I'm showing you for a demo, these are going to be things that are 20, 30 minutes long. And now you've taken that review time from potentially the length of the call, if not more, as you're taking notes, so 20 or 30 minutes to a couple of minutes where you're focusing on the highest risk content. You can also take actions like escalate this to a supervisor or someone else on the team that needs to potentially review that. You can also have rich reporting, which captures all of this content. which I'll just show you real quickly. And this can be pushed into your environment, whether it's your archive of nature, so you can do search and e-discovery along with the transcript across that. I'll also show you how we capture visual concerns. So as you can see, in this case, this is me, which looks like a shady financial advisor. So there was one detection, and I'll just go directly to that to see what happened. It's a probable adult brand logo. As you can see, I'm soliciting business with alcohol, probably not something that you would want your wealth managers to be doing. It's innovative, but I would still think that's not something from a compliance perspective that you would want happening. So again, within a video, you're able to thumbnail over all of the content. You can review this in accelerated fashion, and we'll also even pull out the faces so you can see the participants inside of the video. Again, here's all the risk.
How timely with St. Patty's Day coming up.
I figured I'd do that one on Jameson just to show that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So again, all this is captured here. The concept of this is to make it easier for non-technical reviewers to move through that review process much quicker. Not only are we, creating rules around the regulations to flag content that's of risk for financial services, but then we're putting it into that workflow and pointing to the exact moment in time that could be. So now you can spend that manual review on a lot larger set of content that you would have previously. So next I want to show you our archive and where the content's stored. So again, as I talked about before, you're able to create policies in how long you store this content in the environment, and when it gets purged, and you can customize that based off the type of content, the conversations, and also have the ability to put legal holds. So all your audio and video files are stored here. You have the ability to filter it across people, dates if you needed to, the type of risk scores that are associated with it, as well as any of the policy detections that I walked you through previously. So I'll give you a couple of examples of these. If I wanted to search across James, I can look across all the audio and video content that he's been participating in. So some of them you can think he's on that thumbnail, but other videos I can see that he's been participating with other people. To give you another example of what this looks like, you can search across keywords, maybe that weren't in the policies. So for example, if you have a project named CASA, I can look inside of this video file, and the purple dots are the ones associated where CASA came up in that video conversation. As you can see, we're searching across both of the content that was shared on screen or shown, so you can see CASA here. But if I go a little further, it doesn't look like anything's on screen. So if I play the video,
Google CASA Systems Prospectus, that should be the first hit.
So again, looking across the metadata, looking across the visual content, looking across the audio content to find things that are of interest and that you can do these keyword searches across. And then lastly, as an admin, you have the ability to see the type of content inside of your environment. So you can see where the content's coming from Ring Central, how many calls have come and been generated through that environment, the risk scores and the trends here, all of that allowing you to understand your environment, create risk scores on the people that are uploading it, so you can start defining whether it's somebody who potentially shows suspicious behavior a lot of time. You can start creating risk scores on people. You can also see how effective your team of reviewers are in reviewing content and how long it takes them.
Hey, we have a quick question if you got a chance.
I do.
So someone in the webinar asked, can you manually adjust the risk scoring?
Yeah, so it's something that we can do on the back end. Depending on the policies that you have and that are active, that will drive the different risk scores as well. So
wow, okay, cool.
This will load. There it goes. So these ones, depending on which ones you have active, that will change what the risk scores are.
Fantastic. Thank you.
No problem. So these are just a few of the features that I wanted to highlight, Dante, in our environment. And excited about the integration with Ring Central. Obviously, you can set up policies depending on the different groups inside of that environment. how content comes into our environment, the policies that you want to apply to it, and how it gets assigned to the different compliance reviewers. Setting up that is a simple OAuth handshake. And so it's got this end-to-end rich integration with RingCentral, and that's why we're so excited about it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I agree. Super pumped to see this. This is, like I said, when we did the demo originally, technology itself. And as I said in my presentation, the target's always moving when it comes to compliance and regulatory standards. So to be able to have a technology that's born in the cloud, just like RingCentral, to make those adjustments in real time and to be able to make sure that you're always on top of it's going to be critical for anybody here on the line and anybody that catches this on the YouTube channel later. Is there anything else you want to show us here today, Anthony?
No, that's it. I saw one other question that come up was what was the archiving options? Our environment is built both on AWS and Azure. So we can either host the environment for you, and we have a number of security protocols that go into that. Our background very much comes out of security and compliance companies. Or if you have your own AWS or Azure instance, you can give us access to that, and then we can manage it on your behalf.
That's awesome. Giving people the option to do either or is huge, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the easy capability of setting those retention policies depending on the type of content that's coming into your environment, and then having it stored automatically through our integration into your AWS or Azure environment.
Absolutely. That's no, I mean, once again, Anthony, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you collaborating with me on this project. It's been a long time coming. I know we've been working on it little by little as everything goes on. Thank you also. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've been impressed with how much you've learned about compliance and the way you've been able to speak to it over the past couple of weeks. So it's been awesome to see that growth.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You definitely gave me a crash course. It's you can never stop learning enough, right? And this is a huge portion of what I'm going to be doing in the near future and in perpetuity is staying on top of industry trends like this, particularly as it comes to security and compliance. So I can't thank you enough for being the Jedi Master and helping a young Padawan along. Everybody here on the line too.
Yeah, thank you for including Dante.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been great, man. And thank you everybody on the line, all the partners and customers alike. We always appreciate your time. Looking forward to meeting with you folks out in the field. I'll be in LA next week, be in Phoenix the following week. Got a little bit of a break. I will be in San Francisco for a week and then out to DC. So if you happen to be in any of those cities, let's catch up, folks. Would definitely love to meet with you and talk a little bit of shop, or maybe just talk about some fun stuff too, because life's not always about the business. Once again, thank you everybody for the time. Looks like we don't have any other questions, but if you do have any questions that pop up, please reach out to either myself or Anthony. Thank you everybody. Have a great day.